Hello everybody, my name is Nick and welcome to Lode TV. As always, if this is your first time joining us, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, as well as check out Lode.one to learn more about the project. Now today we're doing an analysis of the silver market, and joining me is Senior Analyst of the Morgan Report, David Smith. David, how you doing?
Very good, Nick. It's great to be with you today.
Okay, well, let's dive right into it. Presently, the gold-silver ratio is around 85 or so. What's it going to take for silver to catch up to gold?
Historically, when you get a ratio anything close to what we see today, you're at a market turn. That doesn't mean it'll turn this afternoon, but sometime in the reasonably near future, you can expect some kind of a realignment where silver starts moving more in its relationship to gold, down away from 85 and down towards, say, 50 or 60.
Right. So in addition to that, right now we're seeing an unprecedented level of interest in silver from countries that are traditionally gold loyal, like China and India, for example. Is this a new trend?
It might be new to the public who's just started looking at it lately, but really we've been following this for quite a while. And just to give you an example, in the third quarter last year, India had already purchased about 25% of the entire gold, silver production for the year. And so they're on the path to do even more so this year. And that's just one country. So if you look at it that way, you can see that India has been historically a big silver buyer, along with China as well.
So of this story that we're seeing unfolding here, how much of this is on the supply side? What's the story on this front?
I would make an analogy of the idea of tectonic plates. If you think of two geologic plates grinding together, we would use the analogy of supply and demand. And the supply, really, of 6 of the last 10 years, from what I've read recently, silver has been in a deficit. In other words, there's been more consumption, industrial-wise and investment-wise, of silver that's produced in a given year than has been produced. And this is a trend that looks like it's set to continue. And there have been several high-profile cases recently of large silver mines that have been shut down due to social issues or not enough water, or maybe used too much water from the local water tables. In addition, there have been several massive silver projects that were supposed to go online over the next few years that have been derailed for perhaps quite some time for various issues. So these things are starting to really tell on the silver production. In addition, there have been several large producers of silver who have seen their grades of production drop quarter on quarter. And some of this is natural because when you're doing underground silver, you can't always predict, what the grades are going to be. In Mexico especially, the veins pinch and swell. However, I think this goes beyond that because they're digging up more ore and they're getting less silver over time. And it's starting to become a trend rather than an outlier.
Now, many analysts have noted that when silver moves, it moves very quickly. Why does silver have this tendency more so than gold does?
One of the things is that it's a smaller market relative to gold. In addition, an awful lot of the silver that is consumed is industrial. And what really gets silver going is when you have the investment of the speculative demand entering the market. And right now, the speculative demand and the investment demand has been relatively muted, especially in the West. But all it takes is a relatively small uptick in that area, and suddenly you have a profound move in silver. Sometimes it announces itself in terms of the premium becoming larger. So people that are waiting for a drop in silver might actually end up paying more for it because the premium goes up even if the silver price stays relatively stable. So that's why it's good to start legging in rather than trying to wait for some magical point in order to start buying.
All right. Last question on the docket, David. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what are your predictions for this summer?
Well, I would say one of two things is likely to happen, and I'm not trying to hedge my bets here, but let me just put it this way. Usually, the summers are fairly quiet and calm, and prices kind of sag a little bit in the mining stocks and the physical price down into July and August, where it forms a kind of an ascending bottom, and then September is usually quite strong. However, with what's going on with the supply-demand issues and all the things going on in the world and the financial issues with the markets being up and down very sharply, I think that that's less predictable than it might be in most years. And so there's a very real possibility that silver could make a low that seems to break trend lines, which it likes to do. and then turn around and become stronger earlier in the summer rather than wait until July or August. So my thinking is, and what I'm actually doing for myself in watching the mining stocks and the physical silver, is to try to make additions on a scale down basis into weakness, not trying to wait until this magical point in August when something is supposed to happen. And this way kind of hedge the bets a little bit, and that way not end up on the sidelines if you can't get in at the price that you wanted.
Wow, that is definitely some sound advice that I know that I will be taking to heart, as I'm sure many of our viewers will as well. That's all we have for today, David. What's next for you?
Well, I'm going to keep watching the mining stocks, and I'm going to try to go against sentiment, which is when sentiment is negative, that's when you want to be positive in terms of your additions. Once you've done your research, then you go in and you carry out the plan that you've set, and don't worry about what the herd is doing. If they're doing the opposite of what you're doing, oftentimes that means it's more likely, if your plan is sound, you will be successful.
Great. Once again, some very solid advice. That's all for today, David. Take care.
Great talking with you, Nick.
Thanks again for everybody who tuned in to today's episode. As always, if this is your first time joining us, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, as well as check out Lode.one to learn more about the project. Thanks again, guys, and take care.